This is video game voiceover. This is mostly a Q&A and other various storytelling elements of the video game voiceover industry, which has been rapidly growing consistently over the past 10 years, continues to become probably one of the most prevalent points in voiceover at the moment, rivaling animation and just sheer content. No worries. I'll give you guys a little backstory. I began this industry doing animation, specifically Japanese animation, back in about 2001. But very, very small things here and there, which is more like a hobby-based industry element in my life. Then it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I decided to go ahead and quit the old day job and live off of very, 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 very cheap ramen for an extended period of time in an apartment about that big. And just, give it a shot for as long as I could. And since then, I can say that I've made probably a good 80% of my living just doing video games. Which, you're like, yeah, video games, but then you realize as far as the state of unionization is in the United States, there is currently no residual structure for video games, for the actors. So whereas like animation, television, radio, you get paid to do the gig, and then depending on how good it does and how much it's played, then the actor gets back-end pay, and that's kind of where a lot of what actors make their living off of. Video games don't have that. Because way back when video games first started doing voiceover, a bunch of the guys in the suits that were in the building in Los Angeles that tell us how we make our money go, there's no reason why video games will be popular. Why would they use voiceover? That's so weird. Nah, they won't need that. Cut to, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, to outselling every form of media that's ever existed, period, in its first month, and which I worked on for 4 days, and it's like, okay, that's cool, I'm glad it made $17 billion, and I see none of that. So, and on one point too, the issue now is that now our unions are trying to go back and be like, hey, so can we need that to our actors? And the union of film producers, the union of game producers that they deal with all go, no. Why? And I understand why, because from the standpoint, I used to, before my day job before that was associate producer at a number of video game companies. I used to work on the other side of the industry. So it's been kind of a unique dynamic to see both. And I'm not one to downplay at all the work that's put into game development. As an actor, I go into the booth, for 4-hour sessions, depending on the game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions in 4-hour blocks, versus people that have been working on this game, 8 to 12 hours a day for 3 years. The actors aren't trying to rob people of that money at all, but when you're making enough money to where your bonus checks at the end of each month can buy a sports car, you can throw a little more towards some of the guys that, make the presentation good. But anyway, that's just my point. I'm rambling now. Hi, slightly hungover. Anyway, so I say let's go ahead and open the panel to some questions you may have, and we'll see where that sparks interesting stories and long, extensive Mercer rambling. So if you'd like to, go ahead and want to start a queue for the, what would you call that again? That's a podium. If any of you are responsible for any of those vodka shots at the Rouge last night, thanks.
Where's the dress?
Oh, no, that was last night. After the masquerade. Once again, vodka shots, thanks. Alright, so, first question.
What are your thoughts on motion capture for video game performances?
Personally, I love it. I came from a theater background, and I love voiceover, and I really love voiceover. People who watch me in the booth say that I'm generally more animated than other people. Like when I do fighting game sounds, other people, like for instance, when we're working on Thundercats, the cartoon, a lot of other people, they're just, we're all in the same booth together, all recording like a radio play, what's called prelay recording. And that's different than a lot of voiceover, which is very isolated in the booth. Which means that now I have other people in the room watching me perform, which it wasn't until then I realized whenever I finished doing some extensive series of lines and turned to look, and Will and Manuel are all sitting there going, I'm like, what? Will slowly turns to me and goes, you physically punched. You did this with your hand. You gave him a thumbs down. And I realized this thing. So mocap was an easy fit for me, and it's a different experience because depending on how extensive it is, sometimes it's closer to film work because you have to memorize the lines, you have to really get all the physicalities of the character down, as well as still emote with the voice and not for that to carry across as well. I've done physical mocap on a few games, facial mocap on even more, and that's fun because, well, you get balls on your face. But balls of steel. But it's one of those things where, as a voice actor, you're used to sitting in the booth by yourself, isolated, with a script in front of you, and that's your performance world. You do line reads, and then you pull back, and the line's over. With facial mocap, you have to capture all the emotions in between the lines as well. So you're in a same booth, only your face is covered in balls, and you're surrounded by about 36 cameras. And depending on the game, you have a window, and then behind that, a room full of about 403 Japanese producers that are all staring at you. And then you have to, say your line, but then keep going. What? No, the good news is generally we have a guide of if you're doing facial mocap, it's usually to already recorded physical mocap. And so you get to watch you have a screen up there that shows the mocap actors that are doing it there, so you can kind of pace your reactions to what action they're doing on screen. Hopefully it matches up. That's the wonders of post. But as far as to bring it all around, my thoughts on mocap, I love it. I think it's really great. I think there's limitations to some of the really, really amazing software and technologies coming out for games like LA Noire, which looks beautiful. The games, but the technology is very, very beautiful for it. But once again, that's very limiting in the way it's done because I worked a little bit part in that game as well, and the room that they recorded that in, you couldn't move your body. You can move your head about that far. That was your entire range of movement, and you had to stare the entire time at this little Mona Lisa picture while sitting in a chair that looked kind of like Jodie Foster's Contact chair that you saw in the movie. So it's very restrictive, and part of the reason I like voiceover is the fact that you're not cast based on your looks. You can play a very wide variety of characters you would never be able to perform otherwise. With that technology for LA Noire, it's just like film casting. You're very, very pigeonholed in that regard. I had to cut my hair for it. It's okay. That's why I was drinking last night. But I think mocap's a very fantastic way of bringing the video game storytelling to a new height level. And I'm glad that they're going with a lot of voiceover actors are being adopted into mocap as opposed to just dropping us in the process entirely. Fuck you, water. And then hiring people instead. So it's kind of meandering. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
No embarrassing stories this time.
Yeah.
You touched on it a little there. In like anime and that, you've got like Foley sounds, like power moves, attacks, taking hits. Obviously in games you've got a lot more of that. You've got loads of different attacks and special moves and everything like that. How do you prepare for that? Because sometimes you have a game in production where you might not even see what the attack is, and you've got to try and envision this move to yourself. And is there any sort of techniques you use to try and fill these Foley sounds with energy?
It's a very good question actually. The first thing I like to do is make the producer tell me what's happening. Because if you don't have context at all, you don't quite have an idea what you're doing, and you end up seeing the final product, and it looks terrible. Or, retroactively, they go back and do the animation, it's not good, and they have to bring you back and pick up, which means they pay you more, which is not a bad thing. But the first thing I like to do is to make the producer act it out. They don't always do that. And be like, so okay, so what kind of attack is this? Well, it's like an energy beam, but like, it's like, you go, and you're like, no, go on. It's usually some, tiny fellow who doesn't go outside much, and it's fun to watch. As far as preparation for the actual moves and kind of getting context for yourself, it just comes with practice. And usually what you'll do is you'll do like an A, a B, and a C take per sound. You want to give enough variation where they can pick from it. So for the most part, when you're doing sound calls like that, you have, let's say for instance, a lot of fighting games, you do 3 different light attacks, or 5 different light attacks, then 5 medium attacks, and 5 hard attacks. Hard attacks. Sometimes you can even differentiate those to punches and kicks. So you have 5 of each for punches, 5 of each for kicks, and you have 5 exertion sounds, and you have 5 impact sounds, light, medium, and hard. And then you have death sounds, and so you just get a very, very wide range of all these different types of attacks. And then and from there, the producer might have you wildline a few things that they might on the back end want, and they just kind of pick and fit them in as it goes. So really, more than anything, it's just like a shotgun method of like, just give us everything, and so we'll make something fit. So that's most of the way to get that done without context. I know you.
You should wait. And you'll sign your life away.
Oh no. Okay.
Take your soul.
I probably shouldn't trust Pete.
You should be back here anyway.
I know.
I've already waited 10 years.
You can wait a little longer, it's fine. Okay. Oh no, what does that mean?
Well,
There you go. Fans. So dude, what's up?
Did you ever sign up for something innocently and it turned out to be not so innocent?
Yeah, the context that you're asking, nothing quite like that yet. I mean, I've had projects that I've signed on for and then got in the booth and started recording it halfway through. I'm like, wow, this is really bad. This is just really bad. This is not going on the IMDb. I'm already like, we're trying to sweep under the rug. I've not had that. I've had a few friends who've done like, a couple of hentai dubbing things. I've had, thankfully there aren't a lot of risque video games, per se.
Really?
Well, you're a special exception, okay? But not all games can take 10 years to be that risque either. So, they have to get all the areola textures just right. So I haven't really had anything on that regard per se, but I've had a few games where I've been recording it like this is really, like for instance, there was a game for PS2 called Prism, the Dark Unicorn, or Prism Chapter 1, the Dark Unicorn. That was, I dare you to go on YouTube and look up the cutscenes. This is just one of the most atrocious examples of video game design you will ever see. And we had a good cast. We had like Kim My Guest and Doug Stone, who are, if you guys are familiar with them, she's the voice of, I think it's Mylene in Metal Gear Solid. Doug Stone's the voice of Psycho Mantis. There's some really, really cool, good people in this, but it was a bad project. And like even recording it was like, and then seeing the final product was like, really? You're calling them trolls, but they look like dwarves, and that you gave the horse human eyes, but they are realistic, and this is under the rug. Of course, every now and then someone, finds a YouTube video and says to me, "Wait, is that?" Yes, it is. Thanks. So that's kind of the closest thing yet. But if I do anything that's really comparably risque, I'll let you know. You there, Invisible Man. What you got? Anyone have any questions, curiosities? Or am I just going to awkwardly stare and speak directly into the microphone? I'm fine with that too. Hello!
In video games, you hear a lot of the same voice actors like Laura Bailey and the Bosch Man. Is it really hard to get into like become a good voice actor so people go, oh yeah, we'll get them? Because you always hear the same people.
Well, it depends. I will say this honestly, because this question comes up at a lot of conventions. People say, "How do you get into voiceover?" You know, how can I get into voiceover? My first recommendation is don't, because if you don't want to take it seriously and put all the effort into it, you're not going to make it. However, if you are serious about it, you want to do it, you have to be really ready to work real hard, because it's like I said, it's a very, very competitive industry, and the people that are already working in it are working a lot because they're very, very good and they've been doing it for a long time. So in that regard, the reason people like that are doing a lot of work like Laura Bailey, because she not only she have a lot of voices, but first and foremost, she's a fantastic actress, and she is consistent and she works quickly, and she's built that kind of reputation to where people have a very, very short schedule to make these really, really complicated games and record this voiceover. They want to hire people that they know will be quick, will be effective, will give good performances. So that being the point, if it's something you want to pursue, you can give it your all. You got to go where the work is. You know, you have to go to a city where you know there's recording studios and there are agencies that you're willing to work with. You have to take a lot of workshops. You want to try and work with casting directors and voiceover directors to learn how to interpret copy, to learn how to expand your repertoire of voices, learn how to cold read. A lot of voiceovers cold reading, so you don't even get scripts ahead of time for video games. Like you'll book it based off an audition you got that was 3 lines of a character. Show up that morning, producer's like, all right, so you guys like he's 28 and his parents were killed by aliens and you have a spiky mohawk, go. And throw a script in front of you, like, okay, and you know, it's all cold reading. So like a lot of these techniques from different elements of performance come together to form a really good skill set for voiceover. So once you've learned all these very important things, then you go ahead and start putting yourself out there for work. Start applying for non-union projects that are out there, student animation projects, looking on Breakdown Express websites or casting websites. Like, I don't know if you guys have the equivalent of Backstage out here. I think places like that. Look for voiceover projects and low-budget animation deals or independent video games. Especially now with a lot of iPhone apps, I've been seeing a lot of people that are independent developers that are needing voiceover actors to do things like that. Those are great ways to build a resume. And then once you start building a resume and making connections with directors and stuff like that, push for an agency. It's an extensive process, but if it's something you want to do, this is how you have to do it, because that's what makes you competitive. Is you've already proven that you've put the time, effort, and energy to show that you're serious about it. You're learning all the techniques and skills to be competitive against these people that have been doing it all this time, and that's when you start making your way in. Like maybe when I started doing anime dubbing, which I mentioned at the beginning of the panel, I started doing anime dubbing back in 2000, but I was doing background voices and tiny bits, and I wasn't taking it seriously. It wasn't until I dropped everything and just worked my ass off for about 2 years that I got my first agent. And that was like 2 years of like, okay, what can I sell to eat this week? It's one of those type scenarios. So you have to really have a love for it, be willing to make those sacrifices, become a competitive element in the industry. I don't mean to make it, sound dismal, but it's dismal, so I'm trying to be realistic. So yeah, the reason that those people get hired a lot is because they're really good and they put the time and energy and effort into it. If you go ahead and do the same, you'll begin to work on par and begin working with those people. Then eventually, you can cut their break lines and then they'll have to replace them. I'm kidding. So, thank you.